I very much believe community radio is the voice of the community.
When I first started, it might have been nervous, but now it's like I'm not. I'm just not nervous.
But without the volunteers, we wouldn't be here.
Well, I enjoy the music and the listener interaction.
It's a little clubhouse where whatever else is going on in your life, it's left at the door.
I did my initial training and became a member back in November 1997. A member who is one of our life members, Malcolm Rawlack, introduced me to the whole idea of community radio. I've always enjoyed radio and have listened to radio since I was just a small child and got my little tranny, as we did back in teenage years, and loved radio right from the get-go. Never ever thought I'd have the chance to be going on air myself, and have always had a love of music and a quite diverse love of music too, and still attend live performances of quite diverse genres of music too. The climate down here is very moderate. We're never as cold as Adelaide or as hot as Adelaide, for instance, and it's a beautiful place to live. We've got both the sea and the river, as well as beautiful farm country and very scenic country. So it's a wonderful place to live down here, but don't tell too many more people. But the diversity of produce even that's down here amongst our farming community too. And our farmers are great farmers down through here. Our business people are usually very, very community minded as well. And we still have got local businesses as opposed to great big names that are coming in too. Our schools are very much local schools and of course local staffed people too. So everything in the community still is us, still is the Fleurieu area. A retired Colonel of the Australian Army from here in Victor Harbour was looking for an interest in retirement, and one of his mates in New South Wales had been involved in community radio, and he thought, there's no community radio down here. So almost from inception, there's been a gap in the radio waves because of the Hills Barrier that's been known and established for a long, long time. And so he was observant enough to pick that up and wonder if perhaps community radio couldn't fill some of that gap. He had some mates in what was then Rotary in Encounter Bay and scraped together just a few $100s, and he started door knocking to commence what was then Encounter FM. And then all they could afford was a little rundown caravan, and at the previous TAFE site, which is where the new Coles's is now, they put this little ratty caravan with an antenna that would blow down routinely, and began transmitting from there with all the permissions and all the licensing that you had to get for aspirant stations back in the day. We were only broadcasting for 1 week per month, which is what aspirant stations used to do. So Malcolm had been involved from 2 years since the station was conceived, and then as he found out where I was and what I was doing, he said, come on, you can have a go at this. And I went, no, I can't do it. I could not go into a public forum and do live broadcasting, but he convinced me to have a go.
I was inspired by Bob Dylan's work on Theme Time Radio to do a theme show, because I'd been doing that with my mates for years and years. We'd have get-togethers with guys I played in a band with, and we'd get drunk enough that suddenly I would pick a theme and start pulling out records and CDs and run a theme. And I'll often get into a show and surprise myself with something that will hit me in the moment that I didn't even realise when I was doing that work to prepare the show, and that's what makes it fun for me. And hopefully people that listen get a joy that somebody's doing that level of work it's a little bit more complex for me in a psychological sense too, because we all have a story for being here. And mine is that I lost my wife and my dad, and I struggled to find things to do, particularly with employment. And I really wanted to do something that I felt useful with. And so putting the show together means I pretend I've got a job, and I get to produce this show and present it and pick a theme for each show and run every song connected to that theme, and lots of trivia and lots of fun things. So for me, it's very life-affirming as well as fun. What made me come to Fleurieu FM? Pure luck. I'd heard Fleurieu FM myself. It just sounded cool. Nothing more, happenstance. I got out of my comfort zone, finally thought, stop talking about it, pick up the phone. I talked to a guy called Rob Henderson here, met Chris, our angel of the morning, had a chin up with those guys, felt really good, and that was it. And I reckon it probably took me a dozen shows before I felt like I owned it. You know, there's millions of people listening to me, whoa, what if I stuff up? And you kind of just lose that fear and roll into it. And I found that coming into this environment, having recorded and so forth for years, you still get that anxiety. Every show I get performance anxiety, every show. But you know what? I'm meant to, because it matters. If I didn't have that, it would matter. And in 10 minutes it goes. So it's like playing a gig. You know, it's that first 10 minutes is hell.
I came down to Victor Harbour 9 years ago, moved to Victor, changed my life. I had a rather topsy-turvy life, so I changed my manner, changed everything, but the final part was to get out of the area I was in and make a new start. This was ideal. I was semi-retired, had to give up full-time work through injury. I was working part-time, but I needed something else to fill in my time. Needed a few hours a week as a hobby. And with a love of music, I listened to radio or records or whatever all day long. I decided to come here, ask a few questions and volunteer. And the lady that took my interview asked me, what sort of music would you play, do you like? So I said the British Invasion and classic soul and Motown. And welcome. She just said welcome. I present what I call the Baby Boomers show. I'm a boomer myself, and therefore I suppose I've got an insight into what people listen to. And with the older population in Victor Harbour as well, I play songs from the 60s mainly, and 70s, maybe a little later. And mainly in the line of pop music, rock as it's called, and Motown and soul. I play a lot of album tracks and B-sides. I don't play all the hits all the time, which gets boring. So if you listen to my program, you'll find that you might not have heard any of the songs before, but you might not have heard them for a long, long time either. I'm a motor mechanic. So I've got a flair for fixing things. You know, well, even just now, I just took a delivery of some speaker brackets. So I've got to hang some speakers, new speakers in the 2 studios. Then I've got to make the cables for them. You know, and then I've got to wire them all into the desk, make everything work. You know, that's great. Brilliant. It's what I was made for.
Moved from Sydney in 2012 and just wanted to get out and meet people in the community and get involved in the community, and basically stuck my head in one day and said, I like playing music. I like playing all sorts of music except country, which was interesting because at the time they played a lot of country. But they gave me 2 hours, and that's when it started. I think we have a different attitude to the other stations. We strive to be as close to professional as we can. And I think that's important, that we do try to be as professional as we can. And even though we're amateur, we don't have to sound amateur. And I think the feedback that we get from listeners and sponsors proves that we're trying that little bit harder. Every year the Victor Harbour Rock and Roll Festival is a weekend of basically rock and roll. A lot of live bands and musicians and vintage cars and things down in the main street. We broadcast from the event for 2 days, and it's usually September, October-ish each year. So last September, when we were doing an outside broadcast, Ryder and his family came along and looked at what we were doing with the microphones and computers and things.
Oh, you want me to say it?
You're the one learning it, I already know.
16, 24, 32. I lost it. So I was at the Rock and Roll Festival in Victor, and then I saw them there. So like, I don't know how, but we went up to them and like I recorded a sting with them, and it was just like, "Hi, my name is Ryder, and you're listening to Fleurieu FM." And then like my mum asked if I wanted to be on the radio, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, that would be pretty cool." So here I am.
Around about October, he was sitting in the studio here with me, and we'd sort of do a dual program. I'd play a song, then he'd play a song, and then we'd talk about things. And
anything, we talk about anything and everything. Well, I write a list down on my iPad and just like write a few things like I went surfing on the weekend, something big in the news.
Go on all different tangents.
We've talked about building a lighthouse on Granite Island. Well, $20 million is going to go towards the causeway. So we just want 10 million, because it won't take 20 million to fix the causeway. And we'll use that 10 million to build the lighthouse. And then the leftovers will go to me and Chris.
But now he sits in the chair and doesn't even turn my microphone on, unless I'm nice to him. And so he presents it himself. About a week and a half before the federal election, he did a 1-hour interview with Rebecca Sharkey. So it was one-on-one, him and Rebecca.
I can't really remember how the first interview turned out, but I asked her a lot more questions because that was like before the election.
Oh, he asked all the hard-hitting questions.
Oh yeah, what's your favourite like pet and what's your favourite song? I asked her a few more serious questions. I was like, oh, is it like hard being Mayo? Like, do you travel to Canberra to be like in the Parliament House? But it was still good to talk to her. She's very nice.
Because that's the sort of thing that we want to do, is get young people involved with the community. It's one thing for us oldies to talk to politicians, but when you're 10, it's a different story. But yeah, so it's good. It's fun to be involved in that, because he has developed so much since he started. He's getting a lot more confident.
I'm not sure. It just feels. It feels sort of normal now that I've like done it for like almost a year. But when I first started, it probably felt really weird just being in this tiny like room with lots of soundproofing and stuff, having to talk into a microphone, having to press buttons and stuff. But now I've sort of gotten used to it. I mean, I do have Chris next to me and he'll help me. And it's just, it's like talking to someone. You don't get nervous when you talk to someone unless it's someone like my best friend. You don't really get nervous talking to them. So yeah, it's sort of like that.
Well, he has a 10-year-old's taste in music. And it's interesting to see what song selections he comes up with.
We play a lot of Billie Eilish. Yeah, we just play a lot of songs, pop and like rock and stuff. So yeah.
Ask him questions and say, let's play some Beatles. You've heard of the Beatles? And he'll say, no. So you say, that's the wrong answer, Ryder.
Well, my name's NERALIE Bailey, and I originally started with Fleurieu FM at the start of 2018, and I just wanted to go there and learn how to use the production studio. I didn't want to be on air, and somehow I ended up on air doing a show, and I now have a show called Just Add Guinea Pig, which is twice a week at night. It's a new music program, and I've been doing that for well over a year now. And since I moved to Port Pirie, I wanted to continue doing my show, but I obviously didn't have facilities anymore. So I contacted Graham from Trax FM here in Pirie, and he very kindly let me use the production studio, which is where I am here today, and basically gave me the keys and said, off you go, have a great time. And has been a really big help to me. So normally what we do is I pre-record my show and all of the interviews that I do on my program. So I do a lot of artist interviews, and then I send it down to Jim BICKERS at Fleurieu FM, and he plays it on the time when my show should go to air. The year before I started on air, I'd had an absolutely tumultuous year, and we had acquired a guinea pig, an actual guinea pig. And this little creature who goes by the very unfortunate name of Cutie, because he's not cute at all, and he's quite a savage little creature, but he had caused a huge disruption in our lives. He belongs to my youngest son. We now have 9 guinea pigs, and they have taken over my life. And I guess the thing about the connection between the music program and Just Add Guinea Pig was that something really small and something that seems to be not very important can make a really big difference in your life. So to me, music has been a way of getting through a lot of really tough times, and I know that's the case for a lot of people. It's about all those things that make a big difference in your life.
With presenters, we've got 30 plus presenters at the moment, and then there's the staff, office staff and whatnot, and their partners and whatnot, and we have get-togethers every now and again. Just a cup of coffee and a cake, and get people together, because they don't always, because people come on at different times of the day. Well, I should say, if one particular fellow was here this morning, Archie, if he didn't come in on a Tuesday or a Thursday morning, I'd never see him, because he's on late at night. So we have these get-togethers, and yes, we have a little social thing going, I suppose.
Yeah, it's great. And look, this might sound really crazy, but I don't think a lot of us spend a lot of time outside of here necessarily hooking up either. So it's almost like this is the clubhouse. It's a little clubhouse where whatever else is going on in your life, it's left at the door, and you come in here and you end up with this universe that's connected by music. And so you don't have the same things that happen in the rest of your life. You don't have the relationship worries or the health worries or the work worries, or you have this. But the thing that I reckon binds us all is that we all actually love music. Whether we present on the air or whether we catalogue records or whether we do admin work, I've not met anybody that doesn't have a passion for music.
I love music, and I love sharing that music with people who also enjoy it. So that's my great love. And I love also following up artists and trying to find artists that I haven't heard from before, or supporting artists particularly that are coming into our area. We still do get quite a few local shows in and around the Fleurieu. So if I possibly can, I will support them coming too. So it's the whole music scene that's in our local area is still my great love, and sharing that with people who are like-minded, very much so.
I like music, and I enjoy playing and listening to music, and I think that's one of the important things of being on the radio and presenting, that you enjoy the music that you're listening to.
We are broadcasting to our own community, so we're broadcasting to people whom we know. Tomorrow we'll see shopping, or next Saturday we'll play them at tennis. So they're people from our community, and we very much are in contact with what they like and what they enjoy too. And they're quick to let us know as well.
Because they're listening to things that bring back memories to start with. They're older, they don't hear the music on radio anymore. the music they grew up with. You know, commercial radio broadcasts to 18 to 35s, thereabouts. That's their market, 18 to 35s. The population here in Victor Harbor, the average population age is higher than that. And people don't get satisfaction here from listening to commercial radio. And we give an alternative. As I say, with my program, for instance, or with what Rob's playing now, it's an alternative to commercial radio, and people enjoy that. You know, we're a different audience, and I like to think I make them happy.
Community broadcasting is important to myself because it's often the only chance the community has of voicing opinions and getting heard in the wider area. If you're relying on the commercial networks, well, they don't really have any representation down here. Whereas we have a lot of contact here with, well, we cover 3 mayor districts. So that gives the community an opportunity to talk to the mayor and say, why are you doing this? Why are the rates going up? And I think that's important because we cover a wide area and the avenues of feedback aren't available if we're not here.
I think we supplement what is both commercial and the government stations. Because we can be so local, we are immediate here in our community, where something that's bigger and Australia-wide, for instance, can't be, and that's not their function anyway.
We don't have a commercial connection. We don't have anything that binds us to an obligation to do anything except present something that people respond to. It matters to people's day, it matters to their life, it matters in a way that's not a commercial arrangement. We do get involved in things in the community quite heavily, so you know, we'll go out and do the local shows and fairs, and if the things that happen around our territory, like a thing that related to the horse-drawn tram that happened on Australia Day, we do that stuff too. And I think the community connection there is so relevant because, again, because of a lack of commerciality. We're not there for any other reason than to be part of the community.
The population of Victor itself is heavily towards the aged, but our broadcast area covers a lot of the Fleurieu Peninsula. So we're going to Goole, we're up into Strathalbyn, you know, Normanville, Yankalilla, all the way around there. So we cover a much broader area. And it's another direction, it's another type of music as well. And gives us oldies a chance to tell them what it was like back in the day, and tell them that music really hasn't changed all that much, that some of the music that they're listening to is the same sort of stuff that we heard in the 70s.
As I explained in my case, it feels like I've got a job, and it feels like I've got an outlet for a passion that relates to putting together a sense of self-worth. But for others, it's about that they're so intrinsically connected to their community that they love the idea that they're giving something back to a community.
I get a lot of satisfaction, from many areas. First of all, presenting, we're talking about that. Yeah, I hope I'm making people happy outside. I make myself happy when I'm here, and I like to think I'm making a lot of people happy out there.
Fleurieu FM really is the community. We cover as much as we can of the peninsula. We've got presenters from all over the peninsula, and we provide programs that are appreciated by various parts of the peninsula. So when you're talking about involvement in the community, well, we are the community, and that's why we get involved in it.
We're totally volunteer. Nobody receives any kind of income here. So it's always a search looking for volunteers that can both give time as well as their own resources, because of course it costs us to get here and to prepare programs and to do this sort of thing. So we're often fundraising as well as looking for sponsorships for the station to bring in the money. But I still work part-time, and a lot of other people previously have too, or even been full-time, and so they're looking for after hours to be able to even to do their programs because they are at work. So looking for personnel probably is one of our biggest challenges, people who've got the time but then are prepared to put it into something like radio. Then always money as well, trying to find money. You know, someone has to pay the power bill, someone has to pay the council rates, all of those basics. These days it's a lot easier to find music because of the technology that we've got now. Even I download from Airit, AMRAP, those kind of resources, as well as look and follow up individual artists.
Well, it forms a community. It keeps the community entertained, but also informs the community. As I mentioned before, you know, we have people in here talking about community events, talking about community programs that run during school holidays or something, you know. And we inform the community on a lot of things that are happening within the community.
Well, we try to engage a lot with the community. We do a lot of community broadcasts, announcements, promoting activities around the peninsula. We get a lot of feedback from our listeners, which is important, because they say that they're actually listening and enjoying what we're doing. Our weather updates are important, particularly since we cover a lot of the farming areas around Strathalbyn and that. So we keep them up to date with sheep graziers alerts, which one of my listeners gives me grief about because he suggests that the sheep go up and listen to the radio in the sheds.
We're going to always be different from another community station because the beauty of community radio is it comes from its community and then supports its own community. So of course every community is going to be different. We've strived very hard over the years to be uniquely our community, always.
It's important that you remember that we are a team, even though we don't always see each other together, but we all work together, remotely sometimes, you know. We all work together, and without the support of everybody to do with this station, you know, we wouldn't be here. And volunteers are very, very important in all areas of community life. Down here, where there's a lot of retirees, you know, and a lot of retirees down here help in community projects or community forums or something like that, in a wide variety of activities. This is just one of them. But without the volunteers, we wouldn't be here.
You know, what is Victor? It's a bit like saying, what's an Australian? And an Australian is somebody from Vietnam. An Australian is an Indigenous person that's always been connected to the land. An Australian is an English person that came here on a ship. An Australian is who comes here tomorrow from wherever they came from. And I think the radio station is a wee bit like that. It's a bit like the passion of someone comes in, changes the pool that's in the radio station a wee bit, and gives something to this little environment that then becomes the environment. Yeah.